Welcome to Terror in Tandem, a podcast about finding entertainment in the macabre, hosted by the knowledgeable and lovable Laura and Richard Mathiasen. Each episode, we discuss the horror genre, from books to film to TV and beyond. Sometimes even from the beyond. You can find us online at terrorintandem.com and on Instagram at terrorintandem. And welcome to...
Hi.
To what we're hoping will be the first of many annual roundups, 2022 edition.
Yes.
Talking about the year, what we enjoyed, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you get it.
Yeah, we're just going to round out the year with our end of the year yearly ending.
And what a year it has been. Honestly, in terms of horror content alone, just an absolute smorgasbord. Smorgasbord.
I'm just going to say that we did not get to all of the things we wanted to get to.
No, gosh, we're just two people. We did our best, and we watched a lot of stuff and read a lot of stuff. But like I mentioned in a previous pod, we are incredibly wealthy, privileged individuals who don't need to, but for some reason we still work full-time jobs. Just for shits and giggles and because work culture is so enjoyable.
Well, I think what we're going to do is just tell you, what we really enjoyed this year, our tops
of our pops.
And then maybe we could talk about what we didn't get to and what's a priority for 2023 from 2022.
I would like just a real quick, brief section maybe towards the end where you and I just talk about our favorite stuff from the year, regardless of genre or whatever.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
Like a little, this is other stuff we like. We are three-dimensional.
We can do whatever we want.
We are people with layers, not like a glass onion, which we'll get to later. So how do you want to kick this off?
Why don't you start?
Oh my God.
With whatever you want to start with.
Yeah, what a year. I mean, let's just get it right out of the way. This is the year we started our podcast.
It is.
And that's the reason why I can't write off this year as being universally terrible.
There's a number of reasons, but
I know.
Yeah.
That was a joke. It's been a challenging time for everybody, but
we made it, everyone.
We did. And I hope that listener out there, you are with someone you love, sitting silently next to each other, listening to every word of this podcast, not talking, not interrupting, just silently absorbing our brilliance.
Or we're just hopeful that
those are the rules.
You feel comfort and joy at some point this year.
Yeah, I hope everybody's safe at home.
And we hope that this was
movies.
Maybe a happy aspect of your year, something that you looked forward to, because we certainly did.
A little
and
distraction.
We're really, really glad for you. So that's going to be my number one highlight of the year, is the fact that we have listeners.
And that is really special. And
it really is.
Truly grateful for that. I want to say I'm very grateful to be doing this with you, my favorite person on earth. She of excellent taste and opinions, and I just love that we're doing this together. Also,
I love that for you.
I know what that means. Single tear. So the other thing is, this podcast has humbled me in a way that I find really enjoyable. And by that, I mean, this is the thing in life that I like to think I know a lot about. And in doing our deep dives and research for these episodes, I have learned and discovered so many new things. It's opened up so many new avenues of exploration for me, new rabbit holes to lose myself in. I feel like just in doing this podcast for less than a year, I've opened up a lifetime's worth of new stuff to explore. And that's been a really nice side effect.
See, even people who think they have the market on the knowledge can learn something new, as my gentle co-host just expressed.
I think that is one of life's greatest joys, to be honest. I know that sometimes not knowing something, sometimes we treat it like it's something to be ashamed of. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to realize that you're still alive and there's still wonderful stuff to discover and learn. And you're never going to run out because there's so much in the past, you could never get through all of it. And new things are being created every day. I don't know. There's a certain side of, I won't call it ignorance, but just not knowing things yet, not knowing everything. I can't imagine knowing everything. What would be the point?
Sure. Right. I mean, that sounds pretty boring.
So, that being said, this was quite a year for our beloved genre. It was a banger of a year. I saw so many good movies that, I mean, I'm glad we talked about a lot of them on the pod because we just don't have time.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we really intended to get to everything, but we also have to live.
No, I mean,
go to work.
Even if I were to talk about every movie that I loved this year from the horror genre, this would be like a 3-hour episode, which it is not. Don't worry.
But there are things that, are still on my list. That's why I want to give a mention to them towards the end of our episode, just so that we haven't forgotten about it.
Yeah. We're on it, folks. Maybe even get to one of them tonight.
So as we mentioned earlier, why don't you start?
As I mentioned in a previous email, as we discussed, I know.
Per my last email?
This is terrible. I hate this. So I am going to start off. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these because these were recommendations, I think, and we've talked about them at length, but just a couple real quick movies that did it for me this year. Talk about Prey on Hulu, the new Predator movie. Mm-hmm. Talk about Scream 5, which just revitalized the franchise, and in my personal opinion, is my favorite entry. Even beating the first one. I can't wait for the next one. The teaser trailer just dropped.
It did.
And it looks amazing.
It's great.
Especially for anyone who's ridden the subway.
I mean, as soon as it came out on Paramount Plus, I watched it immediately.
Yeah. And then you watched it again with me.
Yeah, because I was like, okay, what are you doing for the next 2 hours?
Yeah.
And remember, you were like, oh, yeah, I can't watch it now.
But
I had to wait a few more days. And then I was so excited because it was really legit scary.
I have learned never to doubt your instincts and your taste.
No, you haven't.
Well, I've gotten better at it. But I was a big fan of Radio Silence's Ready or Not. I thought that was a fantastically entertaining movie. But I've never been a huge Scream fan until this entry. It just blew me away. And also began my absolute obsession with an actor who has had an amazing year, Jenna Ortega. Yeah. She's going to come up again in this list.
Absolutely.
But she has been popping up in project after project this year.
And she's a hit as Wednesday Addams.
As Wednesday Addams, and in another one of my favorite movies this year, which I'm going to get to. But The Black Phone, Watcher, Barbarian, these are all movies that we discussed in previous episodes that they were great. And Hatching. I gushed about the Finnish film by Hanna Bergholm, Hatching, in a previous episode. I just raved about it, that I couldn't recommend it enough, and I can't recommend it enough, everybody. It is not what you think it is. It's absolutely pitch black dark, but under the veneer of a smiling, Instagram family.
Right.
It just takes you places. Great performances, amazing goopy practical effects. Hatching is easily one of my favorites of the year.
So I'm taking a little bit of a different approach. So I'm going to tell you what my highlight of horror movies are for the year, what my surprise delightful horror movie of the year is, and what I knew it and I loved it.
Could you take us through that framework, and I'll just jump in with additions to that? Because I kind of like that.
Sure.
That's much more structured than what I was up to.
Yeah. So The Northman was this is probably one of my favorite movies of this year, regardless of genre. But this was the one horror movie that I was aghast the entire time watching. It was beautiful. It was violent. It was menacing. it was dirty and amazing. I mean, I loved every minute of it. All the acting was amazing. All the visuals were amazing. Bjork made an appearance, which
always
is always a delight.
Always
because I
a
think, what's her relationship with Robert Eggers? Doesn't she have
I don't know.
like a friendship or her husband's friend?
Perhaps.
So it's a Robert Eggers movie, which is also surprising in and of itself, because I'm not the biggest Robert Eggers movie fan. I
Beloved
haven't
co-host me is a diehard Robert Eggers enthusiast. I mean, from The Witch to The Lighthouse to The Northman, this man has earned a free pass from me.
This was
now,
tight.
Beloved co-host Laura.
There was no... They didn't waste any time. Mm-hmm. Nothing was wasted at all. This was very well done. There was nothing that I would change about this movie.
It was much more fast-paced than his other films. It was more accessible. And I
don't know about more accessible.
More accessible than The Lighthouse.
I think, sure, but I think you have to know your myth.
Well, that's the thing, is I think you do get a lot more out of this if you are familiar with Hamlet, because this is based on the Danish myth of Amleth, which Shakespeare...
Also Oedipus.
Well, yeah, all myths sort of derive from the same basic human stories and instincts. But Amleth is the specific Danish epic that Shakespeare based Hamlet on, and Hamlet is an anagram of Amleth. And Alexander Skarsgård is a berserker man-bear beast.
But you should really understand or have a loose understanding of Norse myth,
of Norse culture, of the mythology,
yep.
of Odin. Yeah, absolutely. It's so good. It's so good, and there's a lot of honestly, there's a lot of peen in this movie too. You're going to see some floppy peens. Well,
you're going to also see some blood.
Yes.
And it was just amazing. I loved it so much.
It is not what I would call a horror movie, but there are elements in there that are genuinely horrific. And there are some supernatural hints here and there, although it is grounded.
Although
he plays with the mysticism of Odin worship very well.
Although it's not exactly typed a horror movie, it is a horror movie.
Okay. I'm not going to fight you on that.
Okay, good.
Because I'll lose.
My surprise in this category of favorite horror movie of the year was Smile.
Oh.
I mean, I was looking forward to it. I had no idea, though, and I was surprised at how amazing it was.
I'm right there with you.
It was so good because
I was hoping it would be good.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that I was going to be blown away the way I was. I thought it was awesome.
Well, it took the slasher movie and added emotion to it, which was what we've seen. It's added depth. It's added like a real horror in our own society, which is mental health and how mental health issues are dealt with.
Yeah. Anybody watching horror movies from the last few years has probably noticed a trend of trauma being, honestly, it's central to Marvel movies these days. Most of them are about trauma, grief, loss.
It's because everybody that's making the movies
is
now
traumatized.
Are from a culture of trauma.
Yeah,
have grown up and grown into.
We are Generation Trauma. We're the generation that fought 2 20-year-long wars and survived untold school shootings.
Which creativity.
And now we're making movies.
And, having a creative vision come to life is a great way to deal with trauma.
Yeah.
To also show
I agree.
a destigmatizing of certain traumas.
One of my favorite elements of the Babadook was just how, the allegory, this basically A to B straight line you could draw from the Babadook to depression.
Well, if you think about
the manifestation of
a few
mental
years
illness
ago,
in tangible terms.
Yeah, exactly. Like a couple of years ago, grief was the main emotionally charge of some horror movies, like The Babadook, like Hereditary, ways to manage and deal with grief. And now it's trauma, or mental health, especially.
And I'm liking that in franchise movies they're addressing because something that bothered me about franchise movies in the 80s is like you'd have a survivor from the previous movie and they're like pretty much okay, or they're in a mental institution. That it only went one of two ways in the 80s. And now there's an acknowledgement, I think, that like, yeah, I survived all my friends dying, and like that's.
But now I'm hardened.
Yeah, but
like to your point, Scream 5,
we're seeing a lot more. She
comes back. Sydney comes back, and she's like locked her life down in a different way. You sort of see that progression of how she's constantly tried to lock her life down.
Same thing with Laurie Strode.
From one extreme to another.
Laurie Strode in the Halloween remakes. I think we're seeing, we saw this a lot in Don't Worry Darling as well, is a much more open and honest discussion around female rage, which really translates well to horror movies, and not just female rage in like a classic revenge tale. I mean, there are a lot of movies from the 70s where like it's a revenge story from a woman who was brutalized. Is it sort of femsploitation of exploitation films of the time, grindhouse sensibilities? But now we're seeing these explorations of feminine rage in movies like Resurrection, which was another of our favorites this year with Rebecca Hall.
Well, it's also a result of extreme gaslighting of women. And it's taking an aspect of the horror genre of where women aren't believed. Mm-hmm. So if you roll in the Me Too into this all as well, although there's not that necessarily sexualization of the women in these films, which is a really positive move I think we're making. It's also that women aren't typically believed. So in these movies, people are not necessarily believing the women.
And that's a classic horror trope.
It is.
Not being the one person who knows what's going on and everyone says you're crazy, and exploring that through the everyday phenomenon of being discounted for your opinion just because you're a woman. It's just another, I'm so pleased that horror is serving this very real societal function of allowing us as a group to give voice to these things and process them in an entertaining and vulnerable way. Jordan Peele is really ahead of the pack in terms of making socially conscious films without sacrificing narrative. Like, these are on their own bangers of movies. They're narratively tight, genuinely entertaining, and the message isn't lost. There's nothing worse than a message movie that falls apart because you spent so much time trying to bludgeon your audience with your opinion that you lost track of it. You also needed to tell an entertaining story.
Absolutely. And so my final, just to round out my list, is one that I recommended and was very happy with.
What's that?
Watcher.
Yeah. Okay.
So not The Watcher on Netflix, but
no.
Watcher with Micah Monroe. Mm-hmm. And it was a very like psychological slow burn, but it was really good. Again, this woman is sort of dismissed as, not being able to adjust to this new life and needing to get a hobby. And again, it's sort of like this gaslighting aspect of these relationships that these women find themselves in, whether it's from Smile with her sister, this relationship of where your trauma. And that's the interesting thing about Smile is the sisters were both traumatized in the same way from their mother, but they manifested their trauma quite differently. And their tracks in life manifested differently. And it was, you think you have this ally because they've dealt with the same trauma, but you don't.
No, it brings to mind the famous Madeleine Albright quote of there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women.
Yeah.
There's just an added element of hurt when you see a female character being gaslit by other female characters. That was a part of Don't Worry Darling that was so difficult.
That dealing with the same exact trauma.
And you thinking, why aren't we on the same side? We're going through the same thing.
Right.
The Aunt Lydias of the world, if you will. Yeah.
But Watcher was a definitely solid entry. Very.
Oh, yeah. Classic Hitchcock style.
And it wasn't I would. It's not like a lot of bloodshed or anything like
No,
that.
no. It's very psychological.
It's a very satisfying ending as well.
You know, these movies about not being believed, you know, we're talking about it from a feminist point of view, but it's a very classic horror sci-fi trope. I mean, it's most of the best episodes of The Twilight Zone centered around like one person knowing the truth of what's happening, and everyone else discounting them.
Yep.
You know, 20,000, the one where William Shatner, 20,000 feet, terror at 20,000 feet, where he sees the gremlin and on the plane, and you know, that kind of thing. So this is just from a female point of view, but it's a very old trope, and I do appreciate when new generations of filmmakers are coming up, how they take the old and, you know, they respect it by carrying it forward, because these are universal human themes, but they just put their own personal spin on it. And now we're looking at these wonderful movies through this female point of view. And it just, I don't know, it just makes for better stories.
Absolutely. I'm going to give a couple honorable mentions, just a couple shout outs to some honorable mentions.
Was this the section of you were surprised at how good something was?
No, that was Smile.
Can I add one to the surprised at how good it was?
Sure.
X.
Right.
Ty West's X. Now, I'd heard great things. Everyone told me to watch it. I took my time because I'm a little bit mixed on Ty West. I was a big fan of House of the Devil, did not like The Innkeepers. Sacrament was kind of mixed for me. X was incredible. X was really, I mean, it was super good. I've never seen a slasher quite like this before. It's certainly his most accessible movie, but it's still very much an A24 Ty West movie in that, I mean, it's beautifully constructed. It's the color palette is incredible. It's deliberately paced. This is a much faster paced movie than his other entries, but it's a good long while before the first real murder happens, and I wasn't bored for a second. Mia Goth continues to solidify her status as an up-and-coming scream queen. Jenna Ortega, once again, knocking it out of the park. X was just amazing. It had some real twisty stuff that I can't get into. Mia Goth especially really deserves all the accolades she's been getting. And I haven't watched Pearl. I actually just started watching Pearl, which is the prequel to X that Ty West filmed in secret under lockdown and then announced after X screamed. He's like, oh, yeah, it's already done.
You said screamed.
Screened.
I know.
Excuse me. I said screened.
That's amazing.
But X was so good, and I'm sorry I waited as long as I did. Sometimes I do that with movies that people recommend to me. But I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's a real good, just a good ride, good movie, and it shows like a maturation, I think, of Ty West. He's really. It's not to say that his previous efforts weren't good. It's just this is his best movie yet, in my opinion.
Well, my honorable mentions, just because I want to throw them out there. One is Fresh. It came out early in 2022.
Yeah, with Sebastian Stan.
Sebastian Stan and Daisy Edgar Jones.
Okay.
I think it's still on Hulu. It's quite good and really satisfying to watch. Nice
to see him taking a more villainous turn. You know, he usually plays sort of like an anti-hero in the Marvel movies.
Yeah. And then Bodies,
yeah.
Which, listen, if you don't like Pete Davidson, I still think you should give it a try.
It's great.
Because his character is satisfying.
He's basically playing Pete Davidson.
And I just think it was really much funnier than I thought it was going to be, and really good. I
Maria
really thought it was a
Bakalova
good one.
Continues her well-deserved upward trajectory.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know. She's cropping up everywhere.
And she deserves to. I can't wait to see more of her. Amanda Stenberg, who's going to be in the new Star Wars show, The Acolyte. She was great. And, man, love watching Lee Pace do anything,
Yeah,
honestly.
I know.
But especially in this role, it seemed sometimes when I watch
Seems
a movie,
like it was really fun for him.
you get a sense like you can tell that the actors are really enjoying themselves. And Lee Pace seemed like he was really having a blast doing this movie.
The last one I wanted to mention was Nope.
Yeah.
I know we didn't really talk about it. It wasn't maybe on our top of the like list tops.
No, it was one of our July hits.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, Jordan Peele, just keep doing what you're doing.
Oh,
do more of it.
Never stop. Seriously. And I like that of the 3 genre films he's done so far, they are all 3 of them very different from each other.
They are, but I would argue that have very important things to say.
Yes.
Each and every one.
Similar in that they are what I think has come to known as socially conscious horror movies.
And he brings back Daniel Kaluuya, and you see how much he has transformed as an actor.
Yeah, there's
as well.
There's something very special when a director gets their team, their menagerie, and they develop that cohesion.
Yeah.
Here's hoping Daniel Kaluuya and Jordan Peele just never stop collaborating. So I'll try not to take too much time on this, but there's like a small classification of movies this year that I won't say I necessarily enjoyed them or loved them, but they are worth watching because they're very, very interesting. Mad God, the stop motion animated film by Phil Tippett, it's 20 years in the making, and it really is a technological masterpiece. It's a real achievement. It's so bleak and narratively nebulous that it can take a bit of effort getting through, but it's certainly worth it. The other film on that list is Something in the Dirt from my favorite filmmaking duo, Benson and Moorhead. Now doing...
I've never heard of them.
Oh, they did Spring and The Endless and Resolution, some of my favorite indie horror movies of the last 10 years or so, 15 years. Now they're hitting the big time. They did some Moon Knight episodes. They're doing Loki season 2. But they filmed this interesting movie, Something in the Dirt, during the lockdown. It's very talky. If you've ever seen Shane Carruth's Primer, it's a bit like that, or Darren Aronofsky's Pi. It's a lot like that. Very cerebral. A lot of ideas thrown around. Great performances. It's just... I'm not sure it was entertaining, but it was fascinating to watch and worth your time. I just, I put it in this category of like, I'm not sure I had a good time watching it or like would watch it again, but I'm not sorry I did. And it is an accomplishment. So anyway, Something in the Dirt and Mad God, if you're in the mood for something really different, these two definitely fit that bill. They're different from your regular experience if that's what you're craving.
Not like top, movie theater going experiences.
I mean, these are
like...
things you really need to dedicate your attention to.
Right.
They reward patience and perseverance. So they're not like easy breezy or a fun ride or anything like that, but they are, especially Mad God. Mad God is a legit technological marvel and a masterpiece. It's just really bleak.
Well, there's a couple that we haven't watched yet that are on our list. I would say that one of them is The Nanny.
Yes, just came out. So, yeah, I really do want to see that. I think it won the Palme d'Or.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, first horror
nominated.
movie to ever do that.
Another one that is on the list that I haven't gotten to yet is
The Menu.
The Menu.
We really want to see
Sad
that.
about that.
Yeah, just hasn't happened yet.
But The Apology.
Yeah, that just dropped on Shudder this week, I think.
So those are a couple. The Eternal Daughter too.
The Bluest Eye, I don't know if it has come out yet.
Yeah.
Maybe
so
it
there's a few coming. Wendell and Wild you wanted to see.
Yeah. Well, we've got time.
Yeah. We're not going to stop watching these. But we just wanted to let you know that we haven't gotten to them. That's why they didn't make our list yet.
Exactly.
Maybe
Men,
a future
also,
list.
Alex Garland's Men, we haven't watched yet.
Correct.
Yeah.
Let's move on to TV shows, shall we?
Well,
I know this is going to be a short one for you.
Before we do that, I want to give mention to some film discoveries that I made this year.
Okay.
I this year saw my first Taiwanese horror movie called Incantation, and it was phenomenal. It's on Netflix. It is a found footage film mockumentary style about a woman who's trying to break a curse that has afflicted her son. And I don't want to give away the twist. It plays with the audience in a very William Castle-esque style. Not goofy, though. It's quite scary. It does a couple of things that I found really interesting and really kind of fun in a genuinely scary movie. But it has an interactive element to it. It draws the audience in and makes you a sort of unwilling participant in what's going on at times, which is an interesting blurring of the line between audience, spectator, and participant. It's really good stuff, though. Incantation. And the other discovery I made, this also came out this year. It's on Shudder. I watched my first Senegalese horror movie. Mm-hmm. It's called Saloum. Saloum is wonderful. It's kind of like From Dusk Till Dawn in that part of the movie is this like really kind of stylistic, slick crime caper about a group of mercenaries who are infamous. They're like a brotherhood. They're not evil necessarily. They're kind of anti-heroes. Mm-hmm. And then the second half is just a straight up ghost story filled with African folklore and mythology. And it is really scary. It's cool as hell, like super stylized and just really fun to watch. The subtitles are laid out in that dynamic way where they're not just static on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's really cool. Anyone who has seen the Russian film Night Watch from the aughts knows what I'm talking about. The subtitles, dynamic subtitles. It was a really fun ride. Saloum. It's on Shudder. I can't recommend it enough. But this year I discovered my first Taiwanese and Senegalese horror films, and I can't wait to watch more.
It's excellent.
Yay. Now you can do TV. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No apologies needed.
Oh.
You just, we'll take this up privately.
Apology rescinded.
Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing with TV shows.
Oh, we should mention that we're not going to be taking an ad break.
I don't think we need to mention that.
Because all of our advertisers, they've given their staff some time off to celebrate Krampusnacht. So the demons that normally write our ad copy are back at home in hell. Just for a day or two, they'll be back supporting our many properties with their products.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We don't get a vacation, though.
No. And why we wouldn't want one? We love this so much.
So my TV shows, I'm going to tell you which one was my top, which one was a pleasant surprise, and which one I knew was going to be good, and it was good. So my top is definitely What We Do in the Shadows.
For sure. Yeah.
Sorry,
I'm going to have to.
This is a great show, and
I'm right there with you.
Stepped it up a notch with their most recent season.
Colin Robinson's whole arc.
Oh my goodness. I mean,
it ends in such a perfect way.
Yeah, of course. It's just that show is great. Really start with the movies. Honestly, please.
Yeah.
If you want to watch something really good.
What We Do in the Shadows, the movie.
It's a solid entry in the genre.
I had to watch a second time to get the jokes I laughed over the first time.
Me too, because you laughed over them.
Yeah. Well, I'm boisterous.
I'm actually doing a rewatch right now.
Nice.
As like a comfort show.
I know. I've been watching it with you a little bit.
Yeah, that's the other problem too. Like I'll rewatch shows I like, so I can't watch new content.
I mean, come on.
Something that surprised me was The Patient. So this was just a short series with Steve Carell and Domhnall Gleeson.
Yeah, where he's this psychiatrist who gets kidnapped by a
Yes.
patient.
Stephen Colbert.
Steve
Nope.
Carell.
Steve Carell. Did I say Colbert the first time?
No, you said
Okay.
Carell the first time. It's like they're both Daily Show alums.
Yeah, right. Steve Carell plays a psychologist, and his patient basically stalks him and kidnaps him and makes him try to therapy him out of serial killing.
Huh. That's a tall order.
And I just have to say that some of Steve Carell's acting moments were so incredible. And the ending of the show was well earned and really amazing.
Wow.
And I highly recommend it. I think it's just a mini series. I feel like there's just 6 episodes.
Yeah,
maybe
yeah. I
6 or
don't
8
think there's
episodes.
going to be like a season.
I believe
2
they're
or-
half-hour episodes
Yeah.
at that. Just really well done, really confined to the basement of Domhnall Gleeson's character's home. Actually, he lives with his mother. I just thought it was really a surprise. I didn't think I'd like it as much as I did, and it was a really solid entry.
Wow.
And then the one that was appropriate, what I was excited about and also excited me and paid out,
I think I know.
was Stranger Things season
For sure.
4.
Yeah. It was awesome.
I talked about it on the Hits and Misses episode, so I won't go into it, but
And if you haven't watched it yet,
it was
just
the
do
scariest of all seasons.
The most epic, the biggest budget.
Yeah.
It started paying off some long running threads.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very satisfying and very happy about
Listen,
that.
I'm going to throw, for TV, I'm going to throw in the Marvel's special presentation, Werewolf by Night. First time directing by famous composer Michael Giacchino. It was awesome. It was so fun. It just, in this kind of black and white Universal Monsters style, but very stylized. It introduces Werewolf by Night and Man Thing and Elsa Bloodstone for anybody who knows the comics. But what's his name? Doug Jones plays this like evil Ziggy Stardust looking guy in it. That's awesome. It's really fun. It's like 45 minutes long, and it's something that really could have been cringy and terrible, but it just worked. And it did because people were praising it who had never seen a Universal horror movie and were really not the audience for that kind of thing. So I think it showed the strength of this format of doing these one-off specials. That kind of remind me of like old miniseries or old made-for-TV movies, all just with bigger budgets. Werewolf by Night's a lot of fun. It's a good entry horror. It's violent enough, but it's still Disney Plus, so it doesn't go over the top. But the werewolf transformation scene is it's up there. It's pretty good.
Excellent.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Anything else in TV that you wanted to mention?
I don't think so.
One thing that I haven't watched, 2 things that I haven't watched that I want to watch. Archive 81.
It got canceled.
Oh,
like
that's a
right
disappointment.
away. So that's why I didn't pick it up. I
don't think it got canceled because it was bad.
No,
I think it got
I heard it was
canceled.
very good. It got canceled because Netflix cancels things all the time. James Wan was the showrunner on it, I think, or produced it. Yeah, it's based on the podcast.
And then The Girl in the Mirror, which I think is a multi-season TV show.
Yeah, I haven't seen
that is in its 2nd season, I believe.
And The Girl in the Mirror.
Yeah,
was
it's it is a Spanish series. 1 season out now. Another season has been I was going to say gaslit, greenlit. And the synopsis is, after losing her memory in a bizarre accident that kills most of her classmates, Alma tries to unravel what happened that day and regain her identity.
Oof.
I heard it's really great. So
Yeah.
definitely want to check that out. So those are just the missed opportunities that I will take advantage of in 2023.
Absolutely.
Are there any other TV shows that you maybe haven't seen yet?
Honestly, I didn't watch a ton ton of TV this year. I watched a lot of movies.
Yes.
And read a lot of books. But no, I mean, I'd like to check out Creepshow. I've heard lots of great things. It looks great. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
What about Cabinet of Curiosities?
That too. I want to see Guillermo del Toro's new Pinocchio. I know that's not a TV show, but yeah,
Same.
It's all on the list, man. It's all on the list. It's a big list.
So what about your books?
Well, so books, I'm going to not confine it necessarily to books that came out this year, but I want to briefly mention 3 authors that I discovered this year and started reading. T.C. Kingfisher, who wrote What Moves the Dead and the Hollow Places.
And that's like a very highly rated book of 2022.
I am very much looking forward to getting to What Moves the Dead, because Fall of the House of Usher is maybe my favorite Poe story, or one of them at least. It's certainly my favorite adaptation, the Roger Corman version with Vincent Price. But I'm looking forward to that. I did read The Hollow Places, and that was really great. Ruthana Emrys is another writer. She wrote Winter's Tide, which was a sort of update and semi-sequel to Shadow over Innsmouth, but reframing the story away from Lovecraft's virulent xenophobia in a beautiful way, analogous to internment camps and that sort of thing. Anybody who's read Shadow over Innsmouth knows the ending to it. Lovecraft wrote the ending as a heroic thing. Ruthana Emrys rephrases it as, what if that was actually a tragic thing that happened to these people? And the other is Christopher Boyleman. So, I mean, this year I read Between Two Fires, which was like a Dante's Inferno kind of thing mixed with the 100 Years' War. And Those Across the River, which was really cool, kind of turn of the 20th century mixed with werewolves and Southern Gothic style. Yeah, it was really good. So he's an author that I discovered this year, and I'm really looking forward to continuing on reading more from him.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stick with my format and tell you my favorite book that I read this year, favorite horror book that I read this year, and what surprised me the most, and what I was pretty sure would be good and was in fact good.
Lay it on me, mama.
So I'm going to start with the best, and I have 2, and I'm cheating. One I'm cheating, the other one I'm not.
Are you cheating on one with the other?
No. So one of the best books that I've read this year did actually not come out this year. It was published in 2019 or 2020, I believe. And it was called The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones.
Yeah.
This was a recommendation of mine. And it is definitely one of my favorite books I've read this year. I talked extensively about it in previous episodes, but I will just say that it was very viscerally violent. But it was so well written. It's also a unique voice. It's written in a very unique voice, something that took a little bit of a learning curve. But once you get into this sort of world that the author is walking you through, it's pretty well done from there. My other favorite of the year was a book called Daisy Darker. Now, listen, I know we're entering in thriller territory. It's fine. Some people get really scared by thrillers, so we're calling it horror.
Okay.
Horror and thriller. The reason I like this so much was it had all of my favorite elements, which are mystery, Agatha Christie vibes. It had and then when there were none, people were getting knocked off one by one, and you, along with the people in the story, have to figure out who
Nice.
it is, who done it.
So there's a little bringing you along kind of feel
and
to
the
it.
twist is I did not see coming, and I loved it so much, and it was really great. It's by Alice Feeney, and I'm not the biggest Alice Feeney fan. I've read a few of her other books. Sometimes I Lie and Rock, Paper, Scissors, which is pretty good. But this one was, I would say, a standout, especially if you like that sort of Knives Out, Glass Onion type of vibe.
Which we do.
We sure do.
Yeah, we just watched Glass Onion.
So those are my top two. Daisy Darker came out this year, and The Only Good Indians did not. The one that surprised me the most was this little book called The Island by Adrian McGinty. And I was really surprised about how much I blew right through that. I think I read this in maybe a day or two, and it was really, really gripping and well written. And I was just wanted to stay with this character and this family throughout the whole book. Basically, it's a vacation, and these out-of-towners go to this secret island that they're really not supposed to go on, and an accident happens, and things go really wrong.
Yeah,
really, really, really wrong. And it's pretty nonstop. It's really great action, and I was just surprised how much I enjoyed it. I haven't read anything from Adrian McGinty before, but I really enjoyed it. And then the one that, yes, obviously I love and knew I would love is Fairy Tale.
Oh, Stephen King. Right.
Not to go in it too much, but it is a Grimm's fairy tale with a contemporary spin. It's really wonderful. And I don't know. I just really was compelled to mention that I knew it was going to be good, and it was.
So, horror movies aside, books and whatnot, I just want to mention my very favorite thing that I saw or consumed this year. And it was Everything Everywhere All at Once, the A24 movie with Michelle Yeoh, directed by the duo known as the Daniels. It is magnificent. It's a celebration. It's hilarious and weird. It's the best multiverse movie, except for maybe Into the Spider-Verse. Honestly, it's the return of Ke Huy Quan to acting. It's a triumph.
Yeah, it was.
It was stand up on your chair and cheering at the screen kind of movie. An affirmation of life and messiness and love and patience.
It was beautiful and compelling and strange.
And so I first fell in love with Michelle Yeoh back in the early 90s when Super Cop came out, which was Police Story 3, I think, or 4. And I was a big Jackie Chan fan and knew the Police Story movies. Police Story 1 especially is like maybe his best movie. So I'm just, all that is to say, I am so chuffed that like Michelle Yeoh is getting the international superstar recognition that she has always deserved. I mean, she's been a megastar in China and Canton and all that for forever, but now she's like a legit Academy Award contender. And
yeah, and
it's a long time coming.
I mean, she's really, her body of work includes like a lot of physical martial art.
Oh, she's in her 60s and kicking the shit out of people still. I mean, she's in that new Witcher show. She was in the new Star Trek Discovery. She was beating the shit out of people. It's watching her fight, and she does have some action sequences in Everything Everywhere All at Once, but it's always, her style is always so, it's like watching a dance, a martial dance. But she really has also flexed the maturity of her acting ability.
Yes, absolutely.
And is a genuine superstar in every sense of the word. And Everything Everywhere All at Once was just a joyous, life-affirming, beautiful human movie that I can't wait to watch every single year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, when are we going to watch it again is the question.
All right. Love it. Well, 2022.
Well, didn't you want to know the answer to mine?
I do.
what I was figuring out. So
I want to know it.
just give me a minute. The Northman, as I've already mentioned at the top.
And well,
just the way that I felt and how it affected me and how I keep thinking about it. And just how epic it was.
It's a striking movie.
It really was.
Everyone is awesome.
Loved it.
Claes Bang is amazing.
Bad Sisters. Just a shout out to that show. It's not horror.
No, but he plays a real horrifying character.
He does.
Yeah.
He's a piece of shit in that show.
He's a very talented guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Northman was amazing.
And he's in that Dracula show.
Right. We talked about that.
Yeah.
But it's a complicated movie. It's like the best revenge tales, no one wins.
Right.
You know?
Just all darkness and
yeah.
death.
But it is pretty rad. And Anya Taylor-Joy continues to just dominate.
She's the best.
She really is.
We have to run out and see the menu.
All right. Well, it seems like that's on the menu, folks.
Yeah.
So 2022.
Thanks, everybody. And we
a
hope that you will,
in more ways than one.
And we hope that you will continue to join us in 2023 and, keep giving us likes and reviews and tell your friends so that we can keep doing this and buying more luxury properties.
Hope you're all safe and warm and snuggly and just, enjoying all that horror has to offer.
Or you're in the sun and having fun and swimming it with a cocktail. I mean, who knows where you are?
Yeah, that's true. That sounds nice. Oh, well. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Terror in Tandem is written, produced, and recorded by Laura and Richard Mathiasen, and edited and mixed by Richard Mathiasen. Our theme was written and performed by Carrie Denver, and all other music was written and performed by David Suspanic. All opinions expressed on this podcast are our own and should be taken as such. Thanks for listening, and please remember to give us a like, a review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.